But first, another musician on a constant quest to find the magic, the duende. The Canadian soprano and conductor Barbara Hannigan. After Simon Rattle retired from the London Symphony Orchestra over the summer, it was in many ways a natural choice for them to have their flamboyant and rigorous associate artist Barbara Hannigan to direct the opening week of their new season. Her programmes are incredibly carefully put together, and audiences love her, not just for her quicksilver voice and charisma on stage, but also for the high-wire excitement of seeing her turn on her heel in seconds and switch from soprano to conductor and back again. We caught up with Barbara Hannigan in Henry Wood Hall, a much-loved London rehearsal and recording studio, on the day between concerts. The night before, Strauss and Haydn had sat alongside 20th century works by Luigi Nono, George Ligeti and Claude Vivier. And still to come, Stravinsky's Pulcinella. How did it go last night?
It was really great. They played so well. Everyone was, when you have a flock of birds and they're all moving in tandem, and I really felt like that was such an exciting thing last night, because I haven't worked that much with this orchestra, and so you need to build trust and relationship, and of course they have trust within themselves.
So what have you been doing in here today in Henry Wood Hall?
So today we started rehearsing our second program. We did the whole program today. We started with Stravinsky Symphony in 3 movements, and then we went to Haydn Symphony 64, Tempora Mutantur, which is the mutation of time, really. And then the afternoon was spent on Stravinsky Pulcinella. We had just done this concert last night. So to reconvene at 10 a.m. this morning, I don't know how they do it, because this orchestra was totally energized and joyful, and we had fun and we worked hard. And I think it's an example for people in any field to see the discipline of such a group of people. How many people we had this morning? 75 or 80 people, I would suppose, all working towards the same goal at the same time. There are not many other fields in which that happens simultaneously. Only sport.
You must be really, really tired, but also sounds like you're quite energized.
Yeah, I'm a little bit. I think I am tired, but I walked here this morning. It took me just over an hour, and I really noticed that I had a spring in my step. I was still on a bit of an ecstatic high from the performance that everybody gave last night, and also from meeting the audience afterwards. I met some wonderful people, all kinds of people, from this young girl who I see every time I come. Her name is Thais, and she always comes to every concert. And then to this wonderful woman, she told me she was 87 years old, and she loved it. And she said she hadn't seen anything like this, 30 years ago. She wouldn't have seen this kind of, music making with a woman on the podium. So she was very excited about that, the 87-year-old, whereas for the young girl that was there, it's normal for her.
Barbara Hannigan. We left the hall where the orchestra's stage management crew were busy clearing up and moved downstairs to her dressing room, a bit less noisy. I want to go back to what you were saying, actually, about the people you met after the concert. This young woman for whom it's pretty normal to see a woman on the podium, but the programming is unusual. And a much older woman who, for her it's still, in some sense, a novelty to see a female conductor. I've read previously of you saying, I wish we didn't have to keep talking about this.
Right. Normally I don't like to speak about the gender issue too much, but this was something different because we were looking at it in a social awareness, and that was what moved me last night. And I do know that there is something on the shoulders of those of us that are breaking new ground. There are certain stereotypes or whatever, and so I think, to just be aware of it, clock it, and then let's get back to work.
But I think stereotypes are really important, and your relationship with them as an artist. Because for audiences to see somebody singing and conducting, in a sense there's a kind of there's an awe and wonder, wow, look what Barbara Hannigan can do.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I didn't sing and conduct last night. I sang, and then I conducted. But I think it isn't about saying, hey, look, I can do this or I can do that or anything like that. It's not about that. It's about just concentrating on music making. And if we are in a position to serve the music in this particular way, and if we can create a program in which I do sing one piece like I did last night, you know, every piece that I choose for my programs is to put the other pieces into a particular perspective. So, for example, last night we started with Ligeti Ramifications. Then we went into a Vivier piece called Wo bist du Licht?
Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the Federation of California. And not only that, let freedom ring from the Stone Mountain. Let freedom ring from...
And then we went into Haydn 26, Lamentations. Even before the performance last night, which was our second performance of the piece, I was still reworking the Haydn to make sure that we all were connecting it to the Vivier and the Ligeti.
Where did you begin? Did you start with the Haydn and think, I want to hear this differently, and put things before it? What was the beginning?
No, I didn't start with Haydn at all. I started with the Vivier Wo bist du Licht? Because when I was here last spring, I did a piece of Claude Vivier, who's a Canadian composer, who's one of my all-time favorite composers of any period of time. And we had done a piece called Lonely Child. That's kind of the entryway into the music of Claude Vivier. And Wo bist du Licht is a really heavy hitter. And I really wanted to program it with LSO. I wanted to say that Claude Vivier's music deserves to be played, and not just Lonely Child, which is the piece everyone loves, but his other works also deserve to be played. So it was around that piece that I built the entire program. And of course, Wo bist du Licht? Where are you, light? I wanted to program a Haydn symphony, and I wanted to start with Ligeti Ramifications. And actually, when I was working with Ligeti, and it was in September 2001, I remember we had dinner, and I said to him, can you tell me which composers you feel are the most important composers of our time, or of the 20th century? And he said, Claude Vivier and Gérard Griset. So for me to put Ligeti and Vivier together, it was kind of another no-brainer.
I'm really interested in the kind of thread that runs through that program. That, I mean, even though the sound worlds of a Strauss orchestral tone poem and, you know, Claude Vivier, and these are completely different composers to some extent, but it strikes me that there is something that unites the music that interests you.
Oh, totally.
That gets you excited. I wonder if you have a sense of exactly what it is. What's the thing about, you know, Strauss, Haydn, Vivier, in these kind of strange continuities that aren't even about lineages?
Well, I think, first of all, nobody can really see that on the radio, but I think a person couldn't see it either if they were looking at me, but it's an intuition and it's an instinct. It's a gut instinct. So I have to go from that, first of all. What is my gut instinct, and why do I feel this is right? You know, and sometimes you don't know if it's right until I was quite sure that it would work, but I wasn't 100% sure. But then all the players, everybody was sure. After the first day of rehearsal, we knew. Everyone was saying, what a great program, what a great program. And then you find the detail. For example, the Haydn starts with tia-da-da-da-da-da, tia-da-da-da-da. And then in the Strauss opens with an echo of that. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da. So we have like memories of other aspects. And then, for example, in the Vivier, we have these long bowings that they're playing. Dee-cha, da-cha. And then in the Haydn, dum dee dum da dum chum. So we are making all these connections within the music as we go.
And those are gestural connections, right?
Yeah, they're gestural.
Very physical.
Yes. And, you know, when I said to the orchestra, what does this in the Haydn, dum dee dum da dum chum, what is that accent? I said for me, dramatically, the accent it's kind of almost a shock of memory. And I said, it's not the memory like, oh, I forgot to buy milk. It's really a memory like, oh, I can't believe I forgot that.
All of the composers, in a way, that you're talking about here are composers who take risks.
Yeah.
You know, Haydn's a composer of classical music that can appear at first glance a little bit foursquare, and then you realise that he's prepared to have people walk off a stage.
Yeah.
Right? And do anything.
Yeah. Well, he was able to experiment a lot in his life, not just at Esterhazy, where he had a full-time job, but also, you know, writing pieces for London and for Paris, large groups of musicians. Yeah, I'm always going to the edges. You know, it's not just in music making. It's in all aspects of the way that I choose to live and work and just exist.
But going to the edge as a singer must be very different to going to the edge as a conductor. How do you navigate taking a whole orchestra to the edge?
Well, you're working, as in any field, you're working with trust and relationship. And you can usually feel, you know, the energy of the room and the energy of certain players and the energy of what is possible. It's a lot of awareness and being compassionate and kind. There's a certain psychology involved in how does the group like to be treated and what is the formality or informality. You know, you're trying to make people comfortable so that they can be at their best and go to the edges.
As well as it being about you and the orchestra, presumably that's also about the audience, that there's something in the room, that they listen differently. How do they participate in that experience of risk and that journey?
Well, I think the audience are witnessing and supporting. So it was funny, like for the opening concert on the 14th of September, it was the LSO opening of season. I came on stage and there was like this kind of cheer. It was a group of Royal Academy students who were there because I'm a guest professor now at the Royal Academy. And it gave a wonderful feeling to come on stage, to hear all these young people. I also loved that after the first movement of the Haydn, a large part of the audience burst into applause. That said two things to me. One, they liked it. And secondly, that there were probably a lot of people there that don't normally come to classical music concerts. And I thought that was so great. You know, whereas the second night, there was no applause after the Haydn, although we'd done a fantastic job. It was just a different energy in the room. So they contribute. And I don't know if the audience knows how much they contribute. You know, when I'm singing the no-no piece and I'm facing them, I've had my back to everybody all night, you know, and then I come on stage for the second half and, you know, it's no big secret like that. It's nerve-wracking to do that, you know, to face everybody and sing this no-no piece, which is 2.5 octaves, and it's loud and soft and lyrical and angular, and it's just got, you basically show everything you've got in that piece. And you could have heard a pin drop. The focus that we all had, and also the orchestra had my back, and the audience was with me, and I was just singing my heart out. And we know that, it's a spiritual space. that deep listening that everybody has together.
That was the Canadian conductor and soprano Barbara Hannigan. We've been hearing clips from her concert with the LSO on the 17th of September, which is being streamed on Marquee TV from the 12th of October.